Miguel Angel Corea Diaz. Miguel Angel Corea Diaz, also known as the Reaper, who was the highest-ranking member and kingpin of the violent gang MS-13. According to an indictment, Diaz was responsible for carrying out acts of violence, including taking the lives of innocent people. He also brokered illegal substance deals with the Mexican Mafia, trafficking these substances to customers in order to profit MS-13. Diaz was the regional director of MS-13's Sailors Clique for the East Coast. Diaz's brutality was described by a federal prosecutor as almost unfathomable. He and other gang members also controlled the West Side clique of MS-13, which ran a protection scheme around its base in Langley Park and extorted local businesses for operating in MS-13 territory. In 2018, Diaz was arraigned on 3 counts of operating as a major trafficker and 5 counts of conspiracy in the second degree. He was held without bail and later convicted by a federal jury for conspiracy in the aid of racketeering and other charges. In April 2022, Diaz was finally sentenced to life in prison for his crimes. Diaz's attorney requested for a sentence that provides for a realistic opportunity for release, asking the judge for a sentence no more than 21 years and 2 months, but this request was denied. MS-13 is one of the largest criminal organizations in the United States, also known as La Mara Salvatrucha. It was started in Los Angeles by Salvadorian immigrants fleeing the country's civil war, and its membership includes immigrants from Honduras, Guatemala, Mexico, and other Central and South American countries. By arresting the head of the Northeast faction of MS-13, the authorities have crippled MS-13's operations in both New York and El Salvador. Diaz reported to the gang leaders in El Salvador, who also received the gang's profits and directed the cliques in both countries. Dylan Shoemaker. Dylan Shoemaker, a Springville teenager who was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison for fatally beating his girlfriend's 23-month-old son, Austin. Shoemaker, who was 16 at the time of the attack, told the judge he didn't intend to hurt the toddler and said, "I never wanted to hurt Austin. I never wanted Austin to die." But the jurors and the state Supreme Court Justice M. William Bowler didn't buy Shoemaker's tearful apology. In fact, the judge told Shoemaker that he knew right from wrong, and that he knew it was wrong to keep punching Austin's head. During the trial, Shoemaker testified that he put a pillow on the back of Austin's head and punched it to stop him from crying and waking his baby brother. However, witnesses described the attack and Austin's extensive head injuries that led to brain bleeding. The judge called the testimony gut-wrenching and said that the last minutes of Austin's life must have been terrifying. "He loved you, he trusted you, and you betrayed him," the judge said to Shoemaker during sentencing. The attack occurred on March 19th when Shoemaker was babysitting Austin and his 3-month-old brother at his mother's home on Cochran Avenue. Neither of the children were his. Shoemaker's defense tried to argue that there were other dynamics at play, including his inability to control his anger or frustration, but the judge wasn't convinced and ultimately handed down the maximum punishment of 25 years to life in prison. It's difficult to comprehend how someone could commit such a heinous act against a defenseless child. Austin's death has left a permanent scar on his family, and no amount of justice will bring him back. It's important to remember that children are our most vulnerable population, and we must do everything in our power to protect them. Jacob Morgan. Jacob Morgan, a young man who made a terrible mistake that ended up costing an innocent life. On October 26, 2021, Jacob set his own residence on fire, causing the death of his little stepbrother Joshua Alexander Hill. Jacob Morgan was charged with the killing of his sibling and was sentenced to 15 years behind bars. As you can see in the footage of his life sentence, Jacob is fully aware of the gravity of his actions and deeply regrets what he has done. He starts praying and crying while the judge delivers his ruling, showing how much he understands the magnitude of his mistake. The judge, however, showed little sympathy towards Jacob's situation and instead gave him a harsh lesson in reality with a life sentence. The judge made it clear that Jacob's extreme recklessness was malicious and madness, and he had to take responsibility for his actions. As you watch Jacob's reaction to the life sentence, you can see the terror on his face and hear the pain in his whimpers as he realizes what's happening. Jacob's remorse is palpable, and it's evident that he understands the seriousness of the crime he has committed. This tragic event is a lesson not to play with fire. Jacob Morgan made a terrible mistake, and it ended up costing a precious life. The consequences of his actions will follow him for the rest of his life, and he will have to live with the guilt and remorse for the rest of his days. We hope that this video serves as a reminder to all of us that our actions have consequences, and we should always think before we act. May the soul of Joshua Alexander Hill rest in peace, and may his family find comfort and healing in the midst of this tragic loss. Montana Baronet. Montana Baronet, a 23-year-old man from Baltimore who was recently sentenced to 2 life terms in prison for his involvement in 6 murders. Prosecutors referred to him as without a conscience, and Baltimore police once dubbed him the city's #1 trigger puller. While Baronet apologized apologized to the victims' families, only one person spoke on their behalf during the trial. Valencia Bullock, the mother of Antonio Addison, who was slain on his grandmother's front steps, described Baronet as the devil's child and stated that nobody can be that evil. She expressed the pain of losing her son and the constant reminder of reliving it every day. It's heartbreaking to hear about the pain and suffering caused by these violent crimes, and it's a sad reality that many victims and their families may not feel safe enough to come forward and speak out against their attackers. Baronet's case is a reminder of the importance of addressing the root causes of violence in our communities. Poverty, lack of opportunity, and access to resources are just a few of the factors that can contribute to an individual's involvement in violent crime. It's important that we work towards creating a society where individuals have the support and resources they need to make positive choices and avoid falling into the cycle of violence. This includes providing access to education, job training, mental health services, and more. While Baronet's sentence ensures that he will never harm anyone again, it's crucial that we also focus on preventing future violence from occurring. This means addressing the systemic issues that contribute to crime and working towards creating safer, healthier communities for all. Jeremy Christian. Jeremy Christian, a man who was found guilty of murdering 2 people in Portland, Oregon. It all started when Christian was on a packed train, and he suddenly broke out into a racial rant towards 2 young women. Bystanders stepped in to try to stop him, but unfortunately the situation escalated, and Christian stabbed and killed 2 men, seriously wounding a third. After fleeing the crime scene, Christian was followed by passengers of the train, and he was eventually arrested about a mile away. During the arrest, Christian can be seen in the back of the patrol car. Christian was later found guilty of 2 counts of murder and attempted murder. At the sentencing, one of the victims delivered a victim impact statement, and this is where Christian had an outburst. "Mr. Jeremy Christian, your mom should have swallowed you. You are a waste of breath, and when you die, you go to hell. I hope you rot. See you there, fool. Are you ready, everybody?" After Christian was escorted out of the courtroom, the judge sentenced him to 2 consecutive life terms, plus more than 25 years for his other convictions. It's unfortunate that this tragedy occurred, and it's important to remember that hate and violence have no place in our society. The actions of Jeremy Christian were not only cruel, but they also took innocent lives. We should all strive to promote love, tolerance, and understanding towards each other, regardless of our differences. It's important to stand up against hate and to create a world where everyone feels safe and accepted. Amber Pereira. Amber Pereira made a grave mistake in 2017 that would ultimately lead to a 50-year prison sentence. On that fateful day, she drove under the influence and caused a chain reaction accident that took the lives of 3 members of the Felipak family. Her actions left a lasting impact on the community, reminding everyone of the tragic consequences of drunk driving. The accident occurred on the Selman Expressway, where Pereira lost control of her car and hit the Felipak family's car. The impact caused their car to burst into flames, and they were unable to escape. Pereira fled the scene, but the police eventually caught her. Investigators found that she had been drinking and driving at high speeds, exceeding 90 miles per hour. Pereira's reckless behavior caused immense pain and suffering for the Felipak family and the entire community. The loss of 3 innocent lives could have been prevented if she had made the responsible choice not to drink and drive. Her actions posed a grave threat to the community, which is why the judge gave her such a severe sentence.